Hey guys, it's David. You might know me from my music education blog, makemovementsmatter.org, or maybe from my Teachers Pay Teachers store. But if you know me, you know that I like to share ideas, and I wanted to share an idea with you that has really worked well for me and something you could maybe adapt for your own music classroom. I'm in a new building this year, and one of the things about coming to a new place is trying to figure out your space and what works and what doesn't work, and putting up enough things that the room looks right and not putting up too much. And one of the things about my new music room is that I have behind these doors a really fantastic storage space. And I will give you a sneak peek. Please don't judge how it feels sort of cluttered right now, but you might be able to see that it is large, and it's big enough to hold my Winger risers for concerts and Orff instruments, and a lot of storage for materials or games or other instruments and a lot of other things. And I realize how extremely blessed I am to have this space without other teachers in my building putting leveled reading books or science kits or their own stuff in here. I am very blessed, and I get that. So please don't let the other teachers at my school know that this space exists. But one of the things about it is it has these great big double doors, and I don't know if you can really see in the video, but most of my room is this like really light blue, like really, really ice light blue color with accents of white. So it is like the most washed out room, except for these bright blue doors, and they really do pop out in this room. And so one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to make this a space that I used intentionally, and a space that, because I knew kids were going to their eyes were just drawn to it, and I wanted them to, I wanted to be a place where they could find something of value, and especially because if they're going to keep looking at it over and over again, which they have ended up doing, I wanted it to be a place where I took advantage of the space and made it worthwhile. So two of the things I want to show you quickly today are my CHAMPS wall and my vocabulary boxes, and I'll start quick here with my vocabulary boxes. But like a lot of other music teachers these days, I have a full word wall, and I could show you that on another day on just a whole ton of cabinets behind you, behind the camera. I have the big word wall. It's got dynamics and notes and rests and tempo and meter and just a slew of a lot of other things. But one of the things I don't like about word walls is that it feels like too many words. And especially in a building where you have multiple grade levels, it's hard to highlight the words that are meaningful for those students at that lesson. When you have a full range of all the dynamics, and really you're only talking about forte and piano with this grade, or with a certain grade, it's hard to just limit them seeing only those things, or to, it's good to show the continuum of all the other things, but I don't know, I feel like the word wall is it's hard for us as specialists to use because we see multiple grade levels. So one of the things that I've tried that has worked well at this building and at my previous building was just a specific box for each grade level that held vocabulary that was specific to them. And I use this in a couple different ways. One of the things that I do is that I add words that are highlight words that are important for right now, that may be on my word wall or maybe not. And those are just basic important music words for all the time. So if we learn a new note value, I might put that up there. If we're reviewing a note value, I might put that up there. Or something just as simple as solfege. It's something that I could put on here if this is a word that we are highlighting this week or this month, and I put it in the specific box that ends up with each grade. And another thing I do is if I have a specific lesson that has its own subset of vocabulary that I want kids to know or I want them to think about, but maybe is not something that needs to live eternally on the word wall, I can put it in one of these boxes. So let me just pull down 5th grade and give you an example. So in 5th grade, I have the word mariposa, Virginia reel, long way set, Sicilian circle, and wheel. Can you tell that we've been doing some folk dance? But a lot of these words are great. I have folk dance formation posters, and some of these words are up there. But mariposa, we will do once, and maybe come back to it a couple times to review in a year. But it is not a word that needs to live on my word wall forever and for always. And so it's something that I put here, and we use it in the context of the lesson, and maybe a couple lessons later I go back and say, oh yeah, mariposa, what's that word? Or if we're doing a song that has a Virginia reel in it, and I have these other dance words up here, kids can, talk about it and say, oh yeah, no, the Mariposa wasn't the one we're doing now, but remember it was this other thing, and for a while it's nice to have these here. But it's nice to be able to change these out too, and to not have them on the word wall that last forever. So how I made these, it's just really big construction paper that I just had in the closet here when I moved here. And then a big piece of printer paper that I was able to print 5th grade on. And for each grade, at this building I only have 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd grade, and at another building there are other grades that I teach. But for this building, I've made a box each for 5th, 4th, 3rd, and 2nd grade. And I just took the paper and laminated it. And when you laminate the paper, you can write on it with a dry erase marker. And it mostly comes off, but you can see it sort of doesn't. So I would suggest you get some of the Expo brand dry erase cleaning spray, and a towel can clean this off really easily. On the back, I put magnets so that I could just pull this down if I wanted to and take it over to my teacher desk and write on it nicely, which I clearly did not do with these words. I wrote on them during the lesson, but it's nice to have the option to take it down and do things nicely if I want to. And of course we're the Eagles, so each grade gets a little eagle to go with them. The magnets that I'm using to keep it up, I actually I had a friend who worked at a bank, and at the end of a calendar year, it turns out that banks have these little magnetic calendars that at the end of a calendar year are worthless to them. So what she said was, oh, you can just have whatever we have. Great. I ended up getting like 700 magnets about this size, which is perfect. They took them and cut off their logo, but I don't care. I don't need their logo. And these are actually Bic brand. So it's coming up to the end of the year, and I would suggest maybe if you want some free magnets, hit up your credit union or bank or car dealership or anywhere else that might hand out these freebie magnets to people and see if they have any left over. So this is my vocabulary wall, and that's something that's worked really well. The other thing I wanted to share is my CHAMPS wall. And if you are not in a building that does CHAMPS for behavior management, you may not know it very well. But CHAMPS is basically a system that teaches kids everything that they need to succeed for any given lesson. And I like it most of the time. It's something that our whole building does, which is great. So when I use it in my lessons, it's something that I'm reinforcing language and vocabulary that other teachers are using. But it doesn't have to be something that the whole building uses. You could use it on your own as the only teacher in the building, and it could be super successful. But basically what it does is it explains to students everything that they need to be successful, or everything that they need to do well in your class. And when I first saw the system, I was like, okay, it's getting a little nitpicky. But then I think about in my first year of teaching, the student who got up to go to the bathroom and didn't ask. And I was like, you have to ask to go to the bathroom. And she's like, oh, okay, I didn't know. And so there's some kids who just don't maybe know those unspoken expectations or things that you assume that they should know, or maybe it's just that kid who we all have who just thinks a little bit differently than every other kid. And so having this actually is very nice. And going through and actually thinking about all of my activities really made me think about what I do want students to do and how they should be successful, and really what the point of the lesson can be or should be. So each of these letters spells out a different part of an element of the lesson. So C is conversation, H is help, A is activity, M is movement, P is participation, and S is success. So let me explain those sort of quickly for you. So C is conversation. What in the lesson, what can the student be doing? Can they talk or not? Or can they talk with neighbors? Can they talk with you? Can they talk with a whisper voice? Can they talk in a shouting voice? Help is, how do they ask for help? A lot of kids, just shout out a question, and I always have to say, you need to raise your hand. Oh, okay, well, or there are those kids who come from those very regimented classrooms where they have like a hand signal for every single action, like, can I get a Kleenex, or like, I need to use the bathroom. I don't know. There are some very specific teachers, so help is the help signal. How do you get help? And this has actually been really great in this school for my students. A is the activity. I always think that this should be on the top, but CHAMPS is a lot more catchy than CHAMPS. So I guess A should go here. M is movement, and this is, can the kids get up from their space? Can they move around? Can they be with a partner? How do they move? How are they allowed to move? And P is participation. This is something that's great for kids, especially for those kids who maybe sit in the group project and don't say anything. Well, if under participation you specify everyone participates or everyone contributes to the group or whatever, that sort of helps students figure that out. And then S is for success, and success is just success. They're successful. If they follow the CHAMP, they will be successful. In some buildings, they leave the S off. In some buildings, they just use S as supplies. I don't really know how that works because we don't do it that way, but, go do your thing. So there are a couple things that I've done to CHAMPS that, CHAMPS is supposed to be universal, that you can use these things interchangeably in an English lesson or a science lesson or an art lesson, but some things don't really work for music. So one of the things about the conversation is that they specify with like a 0 to 4. So 0 is silence, 1 is whisper voice. Sorry, I'm probably not close enough for you to see all these. 4 is outside voice. That's what that makes me think about, kids' outside voice. 2 is a natural voice. 3 is a presentation voice. But when I started using this in my classroom, it didn't really work for me because how do you incorporate singing voice? Singing voice is not 0. It's not silent. It's not 1, a whisper. It's not 2, a normal conversation voice. It's not 3, presentation voice. It's not 4, outside voice. So what are my options? And I for a long time I just left it at 2. I'm like, oh, it's your natural singing voice, but that didn't really work for me. So one of the things that I came up with when I sort of made this set my own was I put sing for singing voice, and then I put a dynamic marking along with a picture and set of icons. So this works for me because even if kids don't know the dynamics, even if they don't know the symbol, I have this, it's sort of like cell phone bars or towers or whatever you call it, so that kids know, for signal strength, so kids know sort of what that looks like. So this is clearly medium. If you go higher, it goes into the red. Oh, that's the regular voice again. If you go quieter into piano, it goes into the other direction. So this has worked really well for me, and it's been nice that when we're doing something where it's singing, if I want them to be quiet, I can have them be quiet. I never use the triple forte. But it's something that kids, they're starting to think about the vocabulary, and the kids who know the vocabulary get it, and the kids who don't know the vocabulary still get it. But it also helps differentiate that now they're using a singing voice and not a speaking voice. The help has also been sort of different depending on what it is that I'm teaching them. So, I'll just tell you that a lot of the time with activities, I just leave out blanket statements, and my blanket statement for help is raise your hand and wait. Because a lot of kids will raise their hand, but then they'll just start talking. So raise your hand and wait for me to call on you. But there are some other things that I've done, like when we were doing recorders today, it was ask your team, ask the group that you're with. I also have ask your neighbor, or at my school I use ask your shoulder partner, the person next to you. You could do use your help signal in case you do use the bathroom signal or whatever. But this has been really nice because then in a group activity they know there's another one. Ask 3 and then me. Ask 3 other people before you ask me. Which I always think is hilarious. Some teacher out there is like, no. You ask 3 other people before you bring your problem to me, unless there's blood involved. And usually when they need a Band-Aid, there's not actually blood involved. They're just faking it. So the help signal has been really great for my classroom. The activity is really nice. I leave up a blanket music learning because, in my class, if we're doing folk dancing, maybe we're singing and playing instruments and dancing. So what am I supposed to put up here? I could do dancing, or I could, do something else, but this is nice because in an activity where you have multiple things going on, this speaks to all of those. Now, if my administrator walks in, or if I know I'm being observed, I might put up something that's more specific, like dancing, or composing, or a music game. It's nice to have some of these things like music game. You could use that for a lot of situations, and it is sort of specific, but it's general enough that you can use it in a lot of different places. Playing instruments, center time. It's nice to have something like that to be able to put up for the activity. Good times. M for movement. This, again, it works differently in the music classroom. A lot of times if you see this in a general ed classroom, it'll say like stay at your desk or reading center. But for me, that doesn't really work. So I have stay in your personal space. I've also, I've dabbled with like, this is not really how it's supposed to be used, but like circle for a circle game or something else that shows like the formation. Really movement is supposed to say like, are you allowed to get up and go get a drink? Or are you allowed to move over to your friend or whatever and ask for help? I've adapted it because in my room there's a lot of that flex time where yes, they can move around or not. And so this, it's sort of like, how can they move? Only with permission. That one is great. At my old school, assigned spot was just what we did, and stay in your spot. Or right now, my second graders are getting ready for a concert, and so riser spots, your assigned spot there. And that helps them know, like, no, don't run around. You need to stay in your assigned spot. Or scattered spots, there are a lot of different options. Again, can I have a general moving? We will be moving. Or it's especially nice if you're doing locomotor and non-locomotor movement. This is a great blanket picture to put on there. Game movement. Again, whether you're the chaser or the person being chased, or you're the person who's sitting there patting your knees or whatever, this is helpful to have a blanket statement like that. And finally, P, participation. Again, I love leaving listening to directions there because how many times do we have to say that in our lifetime? But in fact, I add following directions to all of my posters. Following directions and playing, work in centers, listening, gathering supplies. I also have following directions and singing, following directions and playing recorder, following directions and, I put that in a lot. And then success sort of stays there all the time. So let me show you a couple examples of how I'd use this. So today when we were playing recorders, the voice level was 2, we were working in small groups. For help, you'd ask your team member. The activity was playing recorders. Movement, you stay in your personal space. You could, depending on what your exact lesson, you could switch that. And then, look at that, following directions and playing recorders. Another example, if we're singing, I would put up a singing voice level up here instead of just the blanket, whatever. I'd probably go back to raise your hand and wait. I could put up singing. And I love that there's a boy and a girl on that. Stay in your personal space. And look, following directions and singing. And one more, this is one that I did for my room because playing instruments is great, but it's nice to have a picture of a kid at an ORF instrument. We have stands at this school, so I added a picture of a stand. So if you're doing instruments there, you can be more specific as like ORF instruments or whatever. And then again, following directions and playing. I'm pretty sure I have that as a following directions and playing with a girl with a little maracas, and then this is a boy at ORF instruments. It's just nice to have that sort of specific stuff for the specific music classroom. But again, I could leave this at something just super basic. I could leave it singing voice level, raise your hand and wait. We're doing music learning, that's our activity. Stay in your personal space, and I could just do, I have another one that just says following directions, or actively listening, or something like that. And it's just nice to have this. It really does map out for students what exactly they need to do. So this is my big blue door. These are my big blue doors, and this is how I'm using them. If you have any ideas about how this could be adapted for your classroom, or something brilliant that I clearly missed that I could add and would make this so cool, I would love if you would share that with me in the comments, or send me an email. My email is makemomentsmatter@gmail.com. Just let me know, because I feel like, it's fun to share things on my blog, but I feel like I learned so much by hearing other people and how they use it, and how things have changed for them. So these are just things that I've been doing in my own room. I just made these, like I said, with construction paper and a laminator. These I did take some time to work through and make them sort of specific for the music room. And again, these are held on by magnets, so it's easy to switch them out. This is available in my Teachers Pay Teachers store if you're interested. But if you have any questions about either of these things or anything else, I'd love to hear it. Shoot me an email, send me a comment. Thanks for watching.